দর্শক শুভেচ্ছা সবাইকে স্বাগত আজকে চলতে চলতে অনুষ্ঠানে। আজকে আমাদের অতিথি বিশেষ একজন বাংলাদেশে মার্কিন যুক্তরাষ্ট্রের রাষ্ট্রদূত আর্ল আর মিলার। অ্যাম্বাসেডর আর্ল মিলার, মোস্ট ওয়েলকাম টু আওয়ার শো চলতে চলতে। হাউ আর ইউ?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for meeting with me today.
Yeah.
Before we start, if I could, I'd like to, on behalf of the U.S. Embassy, offer my congratulations on the 50th anniversary of the birth of Bangladesh and the birth centenary of the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman.
Thank you very much. We are in a very beautiful place and would like to talk you on various issues in a very casual manner. Firstly, almost 2 years you have passed here in Dhaka. So how life is here in Dhaka? Because among these 2 years, 1 year was fully damaged by COVID.
Indeed.
So how life is here in Dhaka?
Well, I've been here about 2.5 years now, and my first meeting with the Honorable Prime Minister back in 2018, I promised her that I would visit all 8 divisions of Bangladesh my first 8 months in country.
Yeah.
And I had the privilege and joy to do so. And I'm really glad I did, because it gave me a great appreciation for the diversity, the rich culture of this remarkable country. And it also impressed upon me the wonderful energy that you have in the world's 8th largest nation, especially with young people. There's an entrepreneurial energy. There is an energy in youth around education and educational opportunities. I hope we get a chance to talk a little bit about some of the U.S. programs for Bangladeshi scholars and students in the U.S. But that was a great introduction for me to this fascinating country. And I guess if I had to use a couple of words to distill my feelings for Bangladesh, it would be warmth, generosity of spirit, a courtesy that I feel is uniquely Bangladeshi.
Yeah, that's really great. So if I ask you where our bilateral relation stands now, because US is our trusted friend, you are our big development partner.
Indeed.
You have big investment here, and you have big influence in all over the region.
Yes.
So where our bilateral relation stands right now?
Never been stronger. It's been growing from strength to strength. With the new Biden administration, I only see it increasing with our engagement on the economic front, the security front, what we're doing with people-to-people ties, more educational and cultural exchanges. We have a number of senior leaders in the new Biden administration who have great South Asia experience and in particular Bangladesh experience. So I think the focus will remain on this country as it should. And I'm really excited about the future of our relationship.
Yeah. So what are the priority issues right now between the Dhaka-Washington relationship? And is there any priority change after the new administration taking the power?
I don't think there'll be a priority change. Obviously, one of the focuses for the United States, for Bangladesh, for the world is the COVID-19 pandemic. And we are working very closely with Bangladesh on your country's response to COVID-19. The United States has supplied $73 million to help Bangladesh in that regard. We supplied 100 state-of-the-art generators for critical patients. At the same time, Bangladesh has supplied PPE to our frontline healthcare workers. I'm really excited to report that one of the principal priorities of the Biden administration is climate change.
Yeah.
And there's no country in the world that is more aware of the challenges of climate change than Bangladesh. In many ways, ground zero for all the issues that we'll all be dealing with around the world, if not now, in the near future. So we're going to be focused on that, and my hats off to the leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister in Bangladesh on this issue. There'll be senior level meetings in the months ahead that will certainly involve Bangladesh. And like the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change reminds us anew how truly interdependent we all are on this vulnerable world that we're privileged and responsible to share. Economic cooperation, that's always going to be a priority. What I want to see, of course, is a prosperous United States and a prosperous Bangladesh, and love to see more trade missions, trade delegations, CEOs from Bangladesh going to the U.S. and vice versa. Couldn't do much of that, as you said, in 2020. On that happy and inevitable day when we finally get on top of this pandemic, I'm certainly hoping that we can see much more of that.
So what about our security cooperation, as well as Bangladesh and United States are working to fight against terrorism, and we know we have some mechanism to exchange the informations between our law enforcing agencies.
Indeed.
Yeah.
No, we have a very robust security relationship and have had for decades. It's not just military, it also involves law enforcement and,
Yeah.
and counterterrorism. We work very closely not just with Bangladesh, but with in regional forums in South Asia, with a renewed focus on what we call the Quad, where the United States is working with Australia and India and Japan. But the United States devotes a great deal of time, interest, and resources to Bangladesh's counterterrorism efforts here. It's been quite successful, and we were particularly focused on this issue after the terrible Holy Artisan Bakery attack, and if anything, that just increased our determination to push back against counterterrorism and work together to make sure that we addressed what is, of course, a global scourge.
Yeah, definitely. You were telling about on the very beginning of this show, you said about the 15 years, we are celebrating 15 years of Bangladesh as well as 100 years of the birth of our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. So how do you evaluate the Bangladesh progress, especially in the economic area in this after 50 years?
It's been astounding. It's been absolutely astounding. I don't think anyone could have predicted the economic and development trajectory of the newly formed Bangladesh in 1971. I mean, it's amazing, and we applaud it and support it. You've had no stronger partner than the United States over this remarkable journey. I just see it continuing and growing from strength to strength. I think the future is incredibly bright for Bangladesh products, for Bangladesh entrepreneurs as they expand not only in this country but regionally and around the world.
So how US can stand beside Bangladesh on these issues for our future development? And you have some projects going on in government and other development agencies here in Bangladesh.
Yes, we have one of the United States' largest USAID programs at our embassy here in Dhaka. We work a lot in the private sector space. We work a lot with public and private partnerships with the private sector, with the government of Bangladesh to inspire increasing economic growth and prosperity. The challenges that Bangladesh faces are faced by so many countries, right? The need for more advanced infrastructure. How do you streamline bureaucracy? How do you roll out the red carpet, not the red tape, for interested investors? But a lot of progress has been made, and just recently as well. Even during the pandemic, there was a lot of things going on virtually to move the needle on that type of engagement with investors around the world.
You already you have visited some major parts of Bangladesh. So what's your observation? What are the basic reason behind this progress? It's only government initiatives, or it's policy, or the people?
The people. It's the people. No doubt about it. And policies have been helpful. Other types of engagement have kind of fueled the fire, but that fire comes from, again, this wonderful entrepreneurial energy, the brilliance of Bangladeshi students, scholars, people that are working in the private sector and civil society. It's what is going to push Bangladesh even higher over the next 5 decades to more prosperous engagement with countries around the world and a much brighter future.
What about US investment here in Bangladesh? We know there are some big companies like Chevron. They are the highest taxpayer from last 1 decade, I thought. So do you find any new US investment? Do you have any plan to invest here in Bangladesh? And you have a very good communication with the new investor who are really willing to come here in Bangladesh. What's their observation regarding Bangladesh?
It's a great question. I mean, and Chevron's a great example of a very successful American company that's been doing business in this country for decades. You know, 90% of Chevron's employees are Bangladeshi, right? So not only when an American company invests in Bangladesh do you get state-of-the-art technology and services, you get this wonderful training as well. And what we're seeing from interest with potential American investors is interest from almost every sector you can imagine. Telecommunications, energy, tourism, ICT, agribusiness, of course. And I know that's near and dear to every Bangladeshi soul, right? And I'm from the Midwest United States, mine too. I'm also from Flint, Michigan, and spent many years in Detroit, Michigan, Motor City, Motown. I had a conversation 2 weeks ago with someone who was talking about building electric cars in Bangladesh. Not just parts and components, but looking to the future, you could actually build a full electric car in Bangladesh. I mean, why not? I had a conversation about a month ago with someone. We were talking about NASA and the recent Mars space probe, and we said, why couldn't the first man to walk on the moon be a Bangladeshi astronaut? It's going to be a global enterprise, but with the brilliance of the Bangladeshi scholars and engineers that we have in this country, there's no reason we can't see that.
What's your suggestion? What are the major difficulties the foreign investor facing investing here in Bangladesh?
There's paperwork needs to be streamlined. There are infrastructure issues. Every country struggles with the issue of corruption, but a lot of work has been done in that space. One of the things I'd like to see Bangladesh do more of is simply kind of advertise itself and brand itself as a welcoming and exciting opportunity for potential investors. And again, I'm just really hoping we can get to that happy day. We can have more American investors come over and see for themselves that it's not only possible to do business here, it's profitable, and something they should really take a hard look at.
Is there any change between your prioritizing Indo-Pacific strategy here in this region?
No.
That is my question, and now it's time to take a break.
Okay.
We want to hear the answer after the break. দর্শক, আমরা একটা ছোট্ট বিরতি নিচ্ছি, নিশ্চয়ই আমাদের সঙ্গে থাকবেন। আমরা কথা বলবো আর্মিরা ঢাকায় মার্কিন যুক্তরাষ্ট্রের রাষ্ট্রদূতের সঙ্গে। দর্শক, অনেক ধন্যবাদ সঙ্গে থাকার জন্য। আমরা কথা বলছি ঢাকায় মার্কিন যুক্তরাষ্ট্রের রাষ্ট্রদূতের সঙ্গে, অ্যাম্বাসেডর মিলার। My question was about Indo-Pacific strategy. It was a very priority issue of US government. What's the future of Indo-Pacific strategy really?
It will continue to be a priority. The new Biden administration will continue to focus on South Asia. And it's basically the United States vision for a region that is free and open, that is guided by international law, where disputes and conflicts are settled peacefully, where political choices are made without political coercion, and we'll continue to focus on the IPS for the foreseeable future, certainly.
What would be the basic outcome of Indo-Pacific strategy? Is it a military cooperation, or is it an economic cooperation only, or it is a strategy for the whole region?
It's more the latter. There's three pillars: economic, security, and good governance. It's one of the reasons I like to use vision instead of strategy, because it makes it sound like it's simply focused on security, which is not the case. It's also not the U.S.'s response to China's Belt and Road Initiative. It has much more to do with other matters in addition to infrastructure. It's just, again, our vision for a free and open region where we can work together under the rubric of international law, and people are free to make their own choices without political coercion, and leading to what we hope is economic prosperity for the United States, which is, of course, an Indo-Pacific country, and the rest of the region.
So what is your expectation from Bangladesh on this mission, IPS?
Well, Bangladesh, sitting here in the Bay of Bengal, obviously is an integral component of anything that happens in the region. We already cooperate across the board, as we discussed, economically, with military to military, with law enforcement entities. The other pillar of the Indo-Pacific is good governance, and that's an issue that we also focus on and work with very closely with Bangladesh.
Okay, sometimes Bangladesh government said they will not join any military cooperation or any military alliance, but if it is economic, then they will join. So what's your response regarding this position of Bangladesh government?
Well, again, the Indo-Pacific Vision isn't solely a military or security vision for the South Asia and the Indo-Pacific. Certainly our economic cooperation is of paramount interest, but we'll also cooperate as we had done for years and years on military exchanges and training and mutual security.
So that is an ongoing process, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, you are telling about Belt and Road Initiative, and Bangladesh have a very good relation now with China as well as our neighbor India. And you know, Bangladesh is maintaining a very balanced relationship between these two superpower in this region, China and India. So how do you evaluate Bangladesh foreign policy, especially on China and India issues?
I think Bangladesh is doing a wonderful job and doing a very effective diplomatic balancing act. Bangladesh has a very important geopolitical position in the world, and of course its foreign policy of friends to all and malice to none plays exceptionally well in this neighborhood. So I think they're doing a wonderful job.
Yeah, and then if as Bangladesh also joined Belt and Road Initiatives, the Chinese component in this region, do you feel any challenge for Indo-Pacific strategy and any conflict between these two?
I wouldn't say conflict, perhaps challenge. It's time for the U.S. to raise our game, right?
Yeah.
To look at China as an economic competitor and to make sure that we're here, again, with our trade missions and trade delegations and investment to kind of be at the table. And that's something we're going to work at very diligently under the new Biden administration and certainly during my time here as U.S. Ambassador.
Sometimes there was a thinking, especially who are thinking of international relations, that U.S. is looking Bangladesh in the eyes of India sometimes. So is it really, or it's a kind of propaganda?
I hear that too. No, I certainly don't look at Bangladesh through the eyes of India. No, we look at Bangladesh as the 8th largest country in the world, the 3rd largest Muslim majority nation, a nation of upwards of 170 million potential consumers. Bangladesh is one of the United States' strongest and most valued partner, has been for the last 50 years, will continue to be so for the next 50 years and beyond. Bangladesh stands on its own, and we're really excited, especially this week, to applaud Bangladesh, as I said before, as it plays this increasingly major role on the regional and global stage.
Yeah, I would like to talk about Rohingya issues. You know, Bangladesh is the innocent victim of this problem. We don't find really any sustainable and workable solution till now, though USA and our friends stand beside us in UN and other international forums. What's the future of this problem and how Bangladesh can get rid of it?
It's an incredibly complex and difficult crisis. Let me extend my condolences and best wishes to all those affected by the terrible fire yesterday. I mean, that just highlights the awful situation that you have this persecuted community living under. Let me also once again thank the people of Bangladesh, the government of Bangladesh, for opening their hearts and borders to upwards of 1 million Rohingya refugees. That's an example to the world. The United States is the largest contributor of humanitarian assistance. I think we're up to $1.2 billion since August of 2017. But we're also the most vocal proponent of pressure on Myanmar, and that's where the pressure belongs.
Yeah.
To create conditions on the ground for a sustainable, voluntary, dignified repatriation based on informed consent. And that pressure will continue, even with the coup next door. We'd love to see other international partners, including those in this neighborhood, step up and support us in New York and Geneva, because Bangladesh needs that support. And when I mentioned the $1.2 billion, much of that support goes to host communities, because the United States appreciates the great sacrifice, the great burden host communities in Cox's Bazar have had to shoulder as they've, again, through generosity of spirit and their just decency and humanity have taken on these people who have been so persecuted and are in such great need.
Yeah, but at the same time, you are helping Bangladesh government as well as Rohingya people for their food and other necessary
Yes.
things, their livelihood. And you said also you were pushing some political pressure on Myanmar government. So the ball is in the Myanmar's court.
Yes.
And you know Myanmar have signed some deals and understanding with Bangladeshi government to repatriate them. But if the situation is not improved in the Rakhine state, then these people can't go there and Bangladesh can't push them back again. What that happens. Then
Well, that's right. I mean, it's incumbent upon Myanmar to create those conditions where that can happen. We cannot continue to have this stasis, right?
Yeah.
You cannot continue to have this situation where you have, again, 860,000 to a million people, many young people, with kind of an increasingly hopeless outlook. And again, that pressure needs to be squarely on Myanmar. They're the cause of this. They cannot be seen as getting away with this, and we'll continue to put the pressure where it belongs. That's squarely with the government of Myanmar.
And Ambassador, you know, these people are homeless, these people are stateless, and they have seen many audacity in front of their eyes, especially by the Myanmar armies. Not only Bangladesh will suffer because it's not Bangladesh single problem. The whole region can be affected.
That's right.
So what the role can play our neighbors, especially India, China, ASEAN countries? Do you have any appeal to them?
Well, my appeal would be to support Bangladesh as it supports this community, and to support the international community in its humanitarian efforts and in the voices of pressure on Myanmar and the government and military that are responsible for the creation of this terrible situation. It's not a situation that is going to be resolved, unfortunately, in the short term, but we have to see some kind of movement, and we have to see it now. And that's what the United States is working on. The U.S. response, in partnership with the government and people of Bangladesh and the international community, is one of the top priorities at the U.S. Embassy. I've been to the camps in Cox's Bazar 12 times.
12 times.
12 times, and I've only been here 2.5 years. I just traveled down with members of, we talked about the Quad, right? The Australian High Commissioner, the Japanese Ambassador. The Indian High Commissioner was going to come, but this has been a busy week, so he had to prepare for that. But it just goes to show you the priority that we give this issue, and we know what a burden it is for Bangladesh, and we haven't forgotten. And it will continue to be a priority for the Biden administration.
Yeah, yes, we have seen the very active role of USA even in the UN Security Council.
Yes.
But still there is no resolution UN Security Council can take in because of our two friendly countries, China and Russia. So if definitely they have their own policy and they have their own interest, own strategy and other things. But my question is, if this situation is going on, then what would be the future?
Well, we have to work together. We have to discuss with all our international partners some kind of solution. I think that China certainly has a major role to play and can be helpful. But it's not a situation that the U.S. can solve, that Bangladesh needs the assistance of the international community to help get it resolved. It's just the magnitude of the problem, the political uncertainty and the churning in Myanmar right now, it had just made it infinitely more difficult.
Yeah.
And we need to speak with a united international global voice to make sure that people don't turn the page in this crisis, and that they continue to put the pressure on Myanmar and they continue to support Bangladesh.
Definitely. Behind Rohingya crisis, what are the major challenges in front of Bangladesh, especially in the diplomatic area?
Well, I think one of the kind of existential threats to Bangladesh and to us all is climate change.
Yeah.
And climate diplomacy will be increasingly important. What a wonderful opportunity for Bangladesh to take a major global leadership role. The story of every democracy is its struggle and striving, ongoing and imperfect, to live up to its founding ideals and principles. And economic development, which we talked quite a bit about, should go hand in hand with democratic development. Every healthy society should protect and respect and encourage voices of dissent. be it in the media, civil society, opposition political parties. And a healthy democracy thrives with lively and frequent debate. So that's an issue that every democracy struggles with. How do you handle criticism, right? In my view, voices of dissent, criticism, are the life oxygen of any vibrant democracy.
Yes.
I'm not on my high horse here, by the way. The United States has huge flaws that we're still struggling with, and we're a much older democracy than Bangladesh as it celebrates its 50th birthday. We are ceaselessly striving to create, as we say in the US, a more perfect union. But, you know, as you've seen in recent events, we continue to face the demons of social injustice, of racial inequality, gun violence. So where we also appreciate how difficult it can be to ensure you have a society where people, where there is true social equality and we are truly living up to our founding ideals and documents and Constitution. But it's difficult, and those conversations are hard and sometimes uncomfortable, but they're absolutely essential for democracy.
Yeah, Ambassador, you are telling about democracy, and good governance is also a priority issue of US government, as well as freedom of press, freedom of speech. These are basic issues between Bangladesh-US relationship still so far. So how do you evaluate Bangladesh situation on this issue? I want to hear from you on this issue, but before then again I have to take a break.
Okay.
দর্শক, আবার একটা বিরতি নিচ্ছি, আমরা কথা বলবো মার্কিন যুক্তরাষ্ট্রের রাষ্ট্রদূতের সঙ্গে, নিশ্চয়ই আমাদের সঙ্গে থাকবেন। দর্শক, অনেক ধন্যবাদ সঙ্গে থাকার জন্য। আমরা কথা বলছি আর্ল আর মিলার, ঢাকায় মার্কিন যুক্তরাষ্ট্রের রাষ্ট্রদূতের সঙ্গে। Ambassador, my question about, you have some priority issues between our relationship, that is democracy, that is freedom of choice, that is freedom of speech, that is human rights, that is good governance, and other issues. And definitely Bangladesh is not in the most stable situation on these issues that we know. So how do you see these 5 things in the eyes of US government?
Well, I think as we were discussing earlier, I mentioned that every true democracy, its story is the struggle, ongoing and imperfect, to live up to its founding ideals and principles. And that's the same issue we have in the United States and democracies around the world. Bangladesh has, as we talked about, had this astounding economic and development journey. I just think for it to continue apace, we need to also strengthen governing institutions and democratic institutions and processes. And that includes, of course, creating a safe space for voices of dissent and civil society, the media, opposition political parties, and so on.
So do you find any challenge in these sectors?
Well, the challenge every country faces.
Yeah.
How do you create that space? How do you protect that freedom of expression, the freedom of the press? No government likes to receive criticism. No one likes to receive criticism, right? But again, it's the life oxygen of a vibrant democracy that needs to be protected and encouraged.
Okay, we have seen several times that our foreign ambassadors, especially the ambassadors from Western countries like USA, UK, they are very much active on talking about Bangladeshi politics and sometimes internal matters that was criticized by politicians here in Bangladesh. Very recently, last 5 or 10 years, we don't find anyone of you are talking on these issues. Is there any policy shift of the foreign ambassadors,
no policy
or the
shift.
priority change?
Not a priority or a policy shift. You know, the United States does not support any particular political party. We support the democratic process, right?
Yeah.
Free, fair elections, and the freedom of expression, freedom of the press, a healthy, loyal, active opposition political party. So that's kind of, there's been no shift in policy or for the U.S. in that regard.
Yeah, we have a big diaspora in USA, especially in New York. We find thousands and millions of Bangladeshi people. So how do you evaluate the role of Bangladeshi diaspora for the development of USA?
So important, so important. And I mentioned I was from Detroit. We have a very large Bangladeshi American community, Banglatown, in Detroit, which I'm looking forward to visiting here in a few months. that can be a major engine of development for Bangladesh in the future as well. It is currently, but it's an untapped resource, untapped potential to have these large communities in Queens, in Hamtramck, Detroit, Michigan, in Houston, LA, Washington, a big community in Maryland, getting folks involved, especially young entrepreneurs involved in a back and forth with investment, cultural, educational exchanges. We're seeing a lot of it this week as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of independence. And just the enthusiasm is really, really inspiring. I'm working very closely with the Bangladeshi embassy and Ambassador Islam on a lot of these celebratory functions. And again, it's just amazing to see how many people turn out for them, the support they have, the intense interest these communities have in everything that's going on in Bangladesh. And that's going to be something you can really use to build on in the future.
Yeah. During COVID, we learned some new things, especially health diplomacy is one of the new area of working. And I know you already have some programs through USAID with Ministry of Health and our doctors and other health professionals. So how do you evaluate the health system and Bangladesh's role in during the COVID?
Well, it's a two-way street. Not only has the U.S. provided assistance to Bangladesh, Bangladesh has helped us. Yeah. Bangladesh has, early on in the pandemic, Bangladesh provided the United States with PPE for our frontline health workers, and in very short order, when we were really in our hour of need.
Crisis.
In return, the United States has provided Bangladesh with over $73 million in assistance, trained, I think, 20,000 doctors and nurses and healthcare providers to date. And as I mentioned before, that's the way it has to be to get on top of this pandemic. It respects no borders, no high station, no nationality. We have to work on it together. And it's encouraging to see now that the vaccines are beginning to roll out in number. And people have to remember, though, and perhaps this could be a good message to highlight during the broadcast, that we're not through this yet. Please don't lower your guard. You don't want to be the last soldier killed in the war, right? And we're tantalizingly close to getting on top of this. Just because you've had a jab doesn't mean you throw your mask away, right? With these different variants, it's really important to continue to do social distancing. And by the way, the reason we're not wearing masks is so you can hear me, but also we're trying to maintain the social distancing, washing your hands, staying home when you're sick. We do a lot of teleworking at the U.S. Embassy. So I just hope that everyone listening remembers, just kind of hang in there, practice that great self-discipline that has been very effective to date in Bangladesh, so we can truly get through this global crisis.
So do you have any idea of when the COVID situation might be normal, especially what are the observations of U.S. scientists or U.S. research agencies?
Well, I wish we had our country director of the CDC here, Dr. Michael Friedman, to talk a little bit more about that. What is encouraging is we're seeing more and more vaccines getting into more arms. It was 2 weeks ago, I think, the first time we got well over 2 million vaccines in one day in the U.S. The vaccines are starting to roll out here as well. So that's great, that's very positive, but we still got miles to go before we sleep.
Yeah. So during the pandemic, the world economy is really suffering, undoubtedly. So do you find any risks for the global economy in the coming years?
I think we all are looking forward to the day when we've got a real handle on this pandemic and see the global economy come roaring back. I mean, you can see how it's affected the tourism industry and the hospitality industry, and you could also see how that could come back in a big way, again, if we get on top of this global crisis. Manufacturing has taken a blow as well. Of course, online businesses have really done well. So I think the world should prepare itself again for that happy day when we finally get on top of COVID-19 and we're in a place where we can engage and get the economy back to where it was before and even higher.
Yeah, USA is a big market for Bangladeshi garments and apparel industry, and after Rana Plaza, some steps were taking to ensure the labor rights and other issues. And you said several times, USA said that Rana Plaza was a wake-up call for Bangladeshi industries. How Bangladesh responds in this wake-up call?
Well, they've done some very positive things around worker safety and worker rights. Much still needs to be done, in particular if Bangladesh hopes to achieve some future trade preferences. But the work has begun. It's difficult, it's challenging, but what I would like to see is Bangladesh becoming the world leader, the gold standard for issues around labor rights and worker safety. Why couldn't that be the case? Doing those things is good for the bottom line, and consumers are paying much more attention to where products are coming from, human rights issues. So it's really an important consideration as people make their business plans.
Yeah, Ambassador, my last question is regarding Bangladesh. In 1971, nobody thought that Bangladesh where will go after 50 years. But Bangladesh gives a big surprise to the whole world.
The same with the US.
Especially economy, same to the US.
That's right.
So next 50 years, what's your idea? Where Bangladesh will stand after next 50 years? I mean, in the 100 years of Bangladesh, where we will be?
Great question. As I see these wonderful falcons wheeling in the blue sky, there's a saying that pilots have when it's a clear day and it's ceiling and visibility unlimited.
Yeah.
So I think Bangladesh, again, with this entrepreneurial energy we've talked about, with this brilliant young workforce, with digital Bangladesh coming online in a big way, the future is very, very bright. Again, the economic development should go hand in hand with democratic development. They're mutually inclusive and supportive. But I'm really bullish on the aspects for Bangladesh. I mean, look how far you've come in 50 years. I can only imagine what this country will be like 50 years from now and beyond.
Thank you, Ambassador Miller, for your valuable time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
দর্শক, এই ছিল আমাদের আজকের আলোচনা। পরবর্তী পর্বে নিশ্চয়ই আমরা কথা বলবো অন্য অতিথির সঙ্গে, অন্য বিষয় নিয়ে। সে পর্যন্ত ভালো থাকবেন সবাই, সুস্থ থাকবেন। অনেক ধন্যবাদ সঙ্গে থাকার জন্য।